Can you imagine living in a world where silently praying is a punishable offense by law?
She was just praying. Praying.
British Army veteran has been found guilty of silently praying outside of an abortion clinic.
Then the female officer asked me, "What is the nature of your prayer?"
And that's not allowed anymore. So police approached her and arrested her and charged her with violating a public space protection order and committing, quote, antisocial behavior.
We can all see that religious freedom is slowly eroding all over the world, right? You just came from Malta, you came from Malta. What happened there exactly?
Well, there's a guy that's getting, he's had 9 court processions on basically, he told his testimony on a YouTube channel, and they're trying to give him 8 months imprisonment for it.
Because he was LGBTQ and then decided, hey, I actually want to believe in Jesus. I don't want to live this lifestyle anymore.
The crazy thing was he was not advocating. The law was basically against change therapy. He wasn't advocating about that at all. He was just talking about his own lifestyle changing. And they said because he spoke about it for 45 minutes, that was him advertising it.
Yeah.
That's literally what the court proceedings
That
are.
is so bizarre. So you can't openly say anymore, Jesus changed my life.
It's a strange world that we live in, but this is kind of where I think that this is going to go. I think we're going to see more and more people getting in trouble for what they say.
Yes. And so the same thing happened in the United Kingdom. So this happened a couple of years ago where this guy was out at an abortion clinic, outside an abortion clinic praying. And then look at what happened to him. Recently, he got a fine for $9,000 for doing so.
The Westminster government is set to criminalise pro-life witness outside abortion centres across England and Wales next month. From the 31st of October, people could receive an unlimited fine for praying or offering help to women within 150 metres of buildings where abortions are carried out. The government has ditched previous guidance which specifically told the police that silent prayer should be protected. New guidance will be published in the coming weeks. Jeremiah Iganabole of religious liberty group Alliance Defending Freedom warned the ban may criminalise innocent people. Already 3 individuals have been prosecuted within the last 2 years for nothing more than praying silently in their minds near an abortion clinic. Unless there is clarity that there is a protected human right to freedom of thought and to engage in consensual conversation, innocent people could be wrongly criminalised.
An Army veteran has been found guilty of silently praying near an abortion centre in Bournemouth. In 2022, Adam Smith-Connor was standing in a council-imposed censorship zone when police officers asked him what he was praying about. When he said he was praying for his deceased son, they claimed he was breaching the zone's prohibition against prayer and acts of disapproval in relation to abortion. Bournemouth Magistrates Court has now ordered the veteran to pay £9,000 in legal costs, and he will be sentenced if he is convicted again in the next 2 years. Smith-Connor said, "Today, the court has decided that certain thoughts, silent thoughts, can be illegal in the United Kingdom. That cannot be right. All I did was pray to God, in the privacy of my own mind, and yet I stand convicted as a criminal? It troubles me greatly to see our freedoms eroded to the extent that thought crimes are now being prosecuted in the UK."
Okay, so before we move on, I'll quickly read to you this article from the BBC. So it says, a physiotherapist who prayed outside an abortion center has been convicted of breaching a safe zone after refusing requests to move on. Adam Smith-Connor was outside the clinic of Bournemouth, or I think they say Bournemouth, I don't know what they say it, in November 2022, where a public space protection order was in place. The 51-year-old from Southampton denied failing to comply with the order, but District Judge Orla Austin said on Wednesday his actions had been deliberate. Smith-Connor was handed a 2-year conditional discharge and ordered to pay more than £9,000 of costs. Poole Magistrates Court heard the former serviceman had his head bowed and hands clasped outside the British Pregnancy Advisory Service in Ophir Road. The court was told he had been praying for his unborn son, who he said died from abortion 22 years ago. The safe zone, introduced in October 2022, bans activity in favor of or against abortion services, including protests, harassment, and vigils. During the case brought by BCP counsel, the court heard Smith-Connor had emailed the council the day before to inform it about his silent vigil, as he had done on previous occasions. On the day, he was asked to leave the area by a community officer who spoke to him for an hour and 40 minutes, but he refused. A new law means buffer zones will come into force outside all abortion clinics in England and Wales at the end of October, prohibiting protests within 150 meters. Wow. What are your thoughts, Scotty? You have a thought?
I mean, this is just quite interesting that they would be so harsh towards this. I wonder if this happens on the other side of the fence, though. I mean, seriously, if somebody's ever made a fun of somebody that's like, walked into a church. I mean, you're saying some derogatory thing inside of your head. Could you get in trouble for that? I mean, people would laugh at that just like that.
Yeah.
But here, it's like you can actually. I mean, that's just ludicrous to think you can get someone in trouble for something they think in their head.
It's not only an attack on freedom of expression. You don't even need to express anymore.
Right.
And they want to control it.
Well, how are you going to prove that?
So just imagine that you're living in this 150-meter perimeter outside the abortion clinic, and you're in your home, you have your curtains open, but you're sitting there getting on your knees praying. Anybody could just walk by and say, oh, you're publicly praying next to an abortion clinic, so you're going to get arrested. You're like, but I'm in my own home, in my own thoughts. But you can't do that.
Wow.
Because he said, they asked him specifically, so what are you praying for?
Right.
And he's like, well, I'm praying because I'm praying for my deceased son because he was aborted as a baby. He wasn't praying against the abortion clinic.
Right.
And they said, you have to leave. He's like, I'm not leaving. I'm in my rights. I'm not going against any law. And then they just say, well, $9,000 pound.
He was far enough. He was far enough. He wasn't praying for the clinic. He was praying for his son.
Yeah. But he was in the exclusion zone, I guess.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I don't get it. Everything he did was nothing that really went against what, the law said.
I mean, this reminds me of the story of Daniel, where they were trying to come after Daniel, and he was inside his own homes praying in his room with the windows open.
Yep.
It's your own space.
Yep.
But they're attacking him.
Yeah.
So, and I also thought of this, like, what if, for example, we were at, let's say you're at a McDonald's, right? And you're just clasping your hands and you're like saying grace. Oh, you can't do that. You're praying in public. I mean, where is this going? Where is this going to end up is my question.
Mm-hmm.
How far are we taking this?
Mm-hmm. I think that you're going to see a lot more of this war.
Yeah, you can't read people's minds. That's the thing, is we all make judgments about other people all the time that are probably incorrect simply because we don't know what's going on in their mind and we don't know their heart.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What's fascinating about this is like they're worried about you, making somebody feel bad because of their choice right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, read through the comments on half our videos. Are those people not making fun of like what we're saying and what we're doing? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Does it ever make you feel bad?
No, because I truly, honestly, I wouldn't be doing this if I really felt bad. But nobody likes to be constantly bombarded with hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, think about it. If you made a law that people couldn't say anything bad in their head about us in our videos, I mean, that's how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
And I would hope that even people that think we're ridiculous would agree with us that this is like a little bit too far here.
I find it funny, like, why are you so threatened by it?
Yeah.
Right? If you don't want us to pray, I'm guessing it's because you don't believe in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why take such actions against it? Right? If you actually don't believe in prayer.
Yeah.
It actually speaks to the truth of if somebody is praying, it speaks something.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I read something about when he was kind of elaborating more on what happened to him, that they were saying, your mere presence here is offensive. And he's like, but I'm standing here with my eyes closed and my hands clasped. How is that being offensive? And so it's the same as, we're talking about some people who don't like our videos and they comment. Let's say that person just like stands outside of the office building. I mean, if he's not being a threat, he has the right to stand there. And he just stands. He doesn't do anything. I will you go talk to him and be like, hey, what's up? And then it's like, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
I'm
because
going to
he's
go back to
praying.
work.
I'm just praying that your building burns down.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he verbalizes it, but he doesn't verbalize anything, right? He's just,
I mean,
he's
even
just
if he
in his
did,
thoughts.
And
even
even
if
if
the
he
person
did,
did, they
it's-
can pray about that all day long.
Exactly. I mean,
You're
they
right.
have the right to pray. So I think it's just interesting that there's more and more of an attack on religion. And I know that in Europe, it is very secular, but it had a really Christian past. I mean, a lot of people there, one, come from Roman Catholicism, and two, they fled Roman Catholicism, became Protestants, and went to other different countries. Like, I'm from the Netherlands. The Netherlands is not a Christian nation by any means, or at least not a Christian nation from the top down, but from the people below. They are very, very secular. But that this kind of stuff now happens that in countries where Christianity was once upheld, where people fled to these different countries in Europe, and now is being attacked by atheism. I find it very interesting, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But Keith, you had a slide up here that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, when you first said something about this, I was like, that really reminds me of Minority Report. And I was like, have you ever seen that? She's like, no. So, do you remember Minority Report?
Oh yeah, this is people getting arrested for their thoughts.
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
And you know who wrote this?
Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, who's a known Gnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Interesting.
So the basic idea is, yeah, they're arresting people for their thoughts, and the way they determine that they're guilty is their three, what they call precogs. So they're these people who have basically visions and dreams. It's like three women. They all kind of look alike, sound alike, talk alike. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And they're explaining what's going to happen before it happens so that they can prevent the crimes that are going to happen before they happen. So the main character in here that Tom Cruise is playing, he sees himself as committing a crime.
Mm.
And so now he's like questioning whether the three are always right. And so I think he winds up going to one of them. Her name is Agatha, which comes from Greek, agathos, which means good. It can also mean other things. But anyways, it goes to her to like try to prove his innocence. But the whole idea is he's being arrested for something, or is supposed to be arrested for something he hasn't even done, and committing a crime against somebody he hasn't even met.
That's pretty wild. Yeah.
Wow.
So he has to try to prove his innocence. But it was like, that's exactly what that kind of reminded me of initially was, okay, you're being arrested and you haven't even done anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you don't have a choice in the matter.
So Keith, how does this all the stuff that we're experiencing, the diminishing of religious freedom, even here in the United States, it's slowly being taken away from us. How does this appear in Bible prophecy? And what does the Bible say about it? Because it does talk about this specific time that we're living in is going to come, and we are literally living in a fulfillment of prophecy.
Yeah, it can be kind of cryptic at times, but really you find this coming out of Daniel 11, and especially the latter part of Daniel 11, which can be very confusing. But to just kind of give a big bird's eye overview, what you're seeing is the war of two ideals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Roman Catholicism. Well, in Daniel 11, you have this whole idea between the king of the north and the king of the south, right? Which are two physical, literal places. You had Rome and you had Egypt. You know, Rome was north in relation to Egypt, which was south of Rome. So as the prophecy goes on, though, you read, and the king of the north and the king of the south, they wind up being titles, if you will, that represent other kingdoms or even thought processes, like idealisms, I guess you could say. I don't even know if that's a word. Ideals, different ideals throughout history. So you have eventually the papacy representing the king of the north and everything that they espouse. And we know what happened with the papacy through history. We went through the Dark Ages. Well, what essentially came out of that? After all that happened, society really started to take a look at the church and say, you told us all this was in the name of God. Look at all the atrocities that happened. Look at everything that you did, all in the name of God. Look at where we're at societally. People can't read. There's like no education. people are poor. This is deplorable. Like, why would we ever listen to you? So they kind of went to the other extreme. Really
1798
representing, in 1798 is when it would have started, but really representing the other ideals from the King of the South. Well, why is the King of the South the King of the South? Like, what's up with that? Well, it comes from Egypt. Egypt was the nation that represented atheism. You have Pharaoh back in Exodus saying, who is this God that I should worship him?
And they were south of Israel.
Yeah, they're south.
Yeah.
So Egypt is really embodying this atheist humanistic worldview. That's probably the better word for it, worldview, and pushing back on the Roman Catholic worldview. And now, where do we see that? We see it in society the same way: secularism, humanism, and these two are still battling today. And it's like a pendulum that swings one way or the other. So, you see it in American politics big time, right? Republicanism is largely associated with conservative evangelical ideals.
Yep.
Right? Which a lot of those are very similar to, in some ways, the papacy.
Right?
And
Catholic ideals.
Really enjoining, and what I mean by that is like really enjoining that church state relationship hand in hand that's very comfortable with one another.
Yeah, the evangelicals and Roman Catholicism both are slowly chipping away at the separation of church and state.
On the other end, you have the why do we need God? Why do we need church? Extreme liberalism. Everybody should be able to do what they want. And this is not to say like all Democrats are that way,
or all Republicans or
all Republicans are the other way. It's just they're you see the ideals, the separation of worldviews in those two systems. And as a general rule, at least in today's day and age, Democrats tend to be more liberal, and they're like, hey, we don't think marijuana is a bad thing. We don't, we don't think abortion's a bad thing. We don't think all these things they don't have a problem with, right? And on the other side, they got a problem with it. So that's really where we're at, and they're at each other, right? Two extremes.
Yeah.
And battling themselves out.
And you see also the king of the north, what was north of Israel, was Babylon. So Babylon is a physical place. Back in history, it was an actual nation. It was one of the greatest kingdoms in the world that the world has ever known. But they also had that Babylonian paganism, occultism. And that, if you look at, is it Daniel 2 that is the statue, or Daniel 3?
Daniel 2.
Daniel 2, where you see the kingdoms that came after. It was Medo-Persia, and then it was Greece, and it was Rome. Babylon that Babylonian philosophy has swept down,
trickled down through
all of them to where now the result of that is in the statue that was the feat between the mixture of iron and clay that is known widely among various Christian denominations as to Western Europe, and it's separated, right? It's divided Europe. It's no longer one big nation. That you see it even today in the age that we are living in. The Babylonian philosophy is still there. And this is no bash, no jab toward any beautiful Roman Catholic people who love the Lord. But the Babylonian philosophy has crept down in that as well, which is why Babylon, north of Israel, is in this prophecy considered Roman Catholicism, like the papacy as the head, not the system, not the people that are involved in it. So, but yeah, I mean, and when you're talking about this, it reminds me of Hegelian dialectic. You heard of it, Scotty?
Yeah, Veith actually talks about this quite a bit, just to smash two polar opposite ideas together. And if you war them against each other, then it causes chaos. And out of that chaos, then you can change the mindset of things. So I think that they're both playing both sides. And if you really look at the political spectrum of the world, I think Veith has made a pretty good point of saying they're sitting at the same table. I think a lot of them are sitting at the same table.
Yeah. Because really what they want with the Hegelian dialectic is to push it down a funnel where you have two opposing forces, like you said. You push it down a funnel and out comes whatever they want you to be. And I think, and we've all talked about this on the show, you need to create chaos first in order for a peacekeeper to come in and say, hey, everybody, we got a lot of issues in this world. Follow me, the beast power, the Antichrist, and then you take the mark of the beast, because look, you're in trouble, right? But if you do this, you will be fine.
Yeah, it's two sides of the coin, but it's still the same coin.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
I was just thinking how that the Hegelian dialectic is so, it's like a counterfeit for what God is like, you know, because you have these two extremes and they're pushing people to a middle. Oftentimes, this is where the truth is. It's in the middle, you know, not these two extremes. And it's like Satan is like counterfeiting that.
That's very
It's
true.
so easy in Christianity to fall into one or the other ditch, right? That are two extremes of one another. And then the truth is that narrow road in the middle. And so it's like a way of Satan counterfeiting what God is already telling us.
I think I see this in movies a lot as well, because sometimes in movies they'll make the attributes of the hero. I mean, he'll kind of be like this like evil character, but he's kind of the hero, and it's like they share both sides of it. And even the other side, the evil villain, is kind of both aspects of God and has some evil aspects as well. So super confusing to people, because it's like, what side is the right side, you know? And I think that's not the purpose at all. The purpose is to have this, you know, outcome happen.
And God is not the author of confusion.
That's right.
You know, we know that from the Bible. So if you have a system, whether it be Hollywood or something else, putting out confusing ideals, we can know that's not from God, because God doesn't operate that way.
Right. You can see the fruits of God. That's what he said, right? By their fruits you will know them. You see their character, and those fruits tell who that person is. It's not confusing.
I think what we're seeing here, again, this issue with putting in laws that will restrict Christians from publicly or even privately in their own mind worshiping God, right? We talked about this, the king of the north, king of the south, Hegelian dialectic. Where is this all headed? Headed towards order out of chaos, the mark of the beast. So any of you at home that are interested, we got a video on what the beast power, Antichrist power is, and what the mark of the beast is. So make sure you check it out. You have a more full understanding of what we're actually talking about, and what does the Bible say about this, and what does the Bible say about the end times. Also, if you're interested, you got an online Bible school for you. It's lls.tv/Bible school, and you can go through the whole Bible verse by verse, comparing scripture with scripture, no outside voices, no outside people giving their opinion, just Bible alone. And you can get deeper into the Word of God and learn more about what's going to happen as we live in these last days of Earth's history.